The voice of sharing. 旅人ASEAN.
Blast from the grassroots, connecting people and sharing ideas.
Hi, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
And today we are going to discuss about music.
Yes.
We have a musician here for our Blast from the Grassroots.
So we have Asamad.
Hello.
Welcome, Asamad in the house.
Yeah, in the house, yo.
Yes, how are you?
I'm okay. How you guys doing?
Very
good. We are great.
Yeah, we are actually really happy to have you here in the studio.
Yay.
So, Asamad, you are a musician and you have been doing this for quite some time. But when did the music bug bite you?
I remember it was a Tuesday night on...
That's very detailed.
No. I think when I was growing up in my house, my parents are both writers, journalists, and they always had music in the house. So since I was a kid, we had cassettes, listening to like Andres Segovia or like listening to Vivaldi, listening to P. Ramlee, M. Nasir, Ramli Sarip. So there was a lot of music in the house. But it wasn't until I was 16. I was in Form 4, and it was the first time I heard Nirvana's Unplugged in New York album. And that made me want to pick up guitar. And that was the beginning of it. So I started playing guitar, and then later on, my dad encouraged me to take classical guitar lessons, and that's the beginning of it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was a late bloomer. I started playing music very late.
So you started with the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So did you start with the electric guitar, or you after electric guitar you moved on to acoustic guitar?
I actually started on a Sunburst Blue Kapok plywood guitar.
I have no idea what is that.
It's basically a plywood made in China guitar that my grandma gave me some money and I bought it at Spectrum Shopping Mall in Ampang. And it's just this, a steel string guitar. And so on acoustic. So I started on acoustic, and then I went on to study classical guitar, and that was kind of my background. Funny, I started listening to grunge, but I ended up playing classical guitar. So learned how to read music and stuff. And from acoustic, I went through electric guitar, and then I go back and forth a little bit ADD. Yeah, but more acoustic.
Awesome.
So your passion has always been rock music. Were there any other influence or interests? In terms of music genre?
I'm all across the board. If you listen to my music, if you listen to my instrumental stuff, you hear very kind of not so much rock. It's there's a lot of jazz. There's Malay music influences. There's folk music influences, classical, and the thing that ties it together is that it's the acoustic stuff is what I call acoustic fingerstyle guitar. It means that I'm not using a pick; I'm using fingers, and it's trying to imitate almost an orchestra within a guitar. You hear the melody, then you hear the bass line, the chords and textures, and you're trying to imitate that on one instrument. And that has been kind of the thing that's been tying my music for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful to listen his music. It's just not like other rocky music. You were just shaking your heads off and the groove. It's just you can just sit down and you can just listen to his songs. It's as if he's serenading for you. If you're an audience, it's so beautiful. Yes,
You're making him blush now.
Thank you. Make me blush. Cool.
So, would you like to share other parts of your background, like your education, your studies, your majors?
Yeah. So I have 4 degrees in music.
There's a lot of music degrees.
There's a lot of studies. Yeah. So I went to a music college called ICOM, International College of Music, and I got my first degree there. And that was in music arranging. So I was there from 98 to about 2002. And I learned a lot there. I learned to arrange music, play jazz, improvisation, a lot of that kind of stuff. And then after that, I was gigging for about 2 years, and I was with a duo called Dalcha Duo. The other guitarist in the duo is this guy named Hardesh Singh, and we played different festivals, different events. I also worked with a singer-songwriter by the name of Shelley Leong around that time.
Who's that?
Shelley Leong.
Who's that?
She's like an indie singer-songwriter, and she was gigging around that time. After that, I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston. I got a scholarship, and then I went there and I studied jazz composition and guitar performance there, and that was another 2 degrees there. I did a double major in Boston, and from right after I finished Berklee, I got a teaching job there for what they call the summer guitar session. So it's a 1-week program, mostly high school kids that want to go to Berklee. So it's just like a 1-week intensive guitar camp thing, and I did for that year and 2007 and then 2008 I did that. I moved to California after Berklee, and I did my master's in jazz studies at San Jose State University, and that's basically right at the heart of Silicon Valley. And so I was in the San Francisco for about 4 years, 1 year of gigging and 2 years of doing my master's and another year of teaching and performing. And then I moved back here in 2011, and I've been back in Malaysia ever since.
So maybe you want to share with us during your hip-hop era.
Okay, so this is what happens when you tell people about this. People ask you about it. So before I was into guitar, I was basically kind of really deeply into hip-hop and R&B. And it started off, very safe.
Deeply, as in like you even record songs?
No, I wasn't smart enough to record songs. But what I did was, I listened to, initially I listened to very poppy stuff like TLC, Criss Cross. And then later on, I started listening to Snoop Dogg, Warren G, Tupac, was a big Tupac fan, Naughty by Nature, Shy, a lot of all this R&B and hip-hop acts. This was all around, I would say, 94 to 96.
I'm so speechless. I will never imagine him coming from that background. That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah, so I used to listen, and this was all like before the time you could go online and just Google for the lyrics. So I used to transcribe, there was this artist Snow that had a song called Informer, and I was trying to transcribe it, but I was transcribing it phonetically, so it didn't make any sense. So yeah, I was really into hip hop and R&B, and I used to buy the singles where that's the only way you could get the -1 track, and then I would just be trying to rap over that. So I wrote some rhymes and stuff, but I would be very embarrassed to show anyone those now.
Okay, so we'll not ask you.
We'll not ask you. But your current direction, you seem to be playing more mellowed music, and you also focus a lot of interesting way of playing the guitar. Is there a market for that?
I think so. People have been hiring me. I'm still gigging. I've been playing music since '96, and I've been gigging since 1998, and now is 2014, and people still, there is a market for it.
The reason why I asked is because I remember early on off air you mentioned that every musician should be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, as every musician is an entrepreneur, whether they realize it or not.
So what is the challenges that you see a lot of the struggling musicians are facing right now?
I think it's the same problem that musicians have been facing worldwide since the beginning of musicians trying to make a living doing music. It's what do people say? No one listens to my music, or like no one understands my music, or like people don't buy my CDs, or what else do the people complain? Like my music's too advanced, people don't understand me, or like people never come to my gigs. These are all it's all the same challenges really, and so how do you remedy that? Well, partly I think that at the heart of it is that you just have to really look at your music and slowly learn how to. You have to do it for a long time. In a nutshell, it's like any business. If you expect to go and start a business and I'm going to make money after a year of this business, and it's like completely irrational. But the thing about the Malaysian scene is that it's possible. You could be famous in a year. But the thing is, it's not about being famous in a year. It's like, can you do this for 5 years? Are you still relevant after 10 years? You know, it's easy to start a band and suddenly like, oh, everyone, they're gigging everywhere. Then 1 year later, like, hey, they're not long, where are they? Yeah, so sustainability, doing it for a long run, that's the challenge.
That's a
the real
realistic
challenge.
point of view. Yeah.
And Grace, you are also a musician yourself.
Yes.
But you know, when you when the music industry do not have the clear structure as in a corporate sector, for example, and also the way you make money is different from the way you make money out of a 9-to-5 job. So how can a musician like you, Grace, be able to sustain, you know, for more than 2-3 years if, you know, when the focus is very blur when it comes to the direction of the music the music career?
I'm surprised that you're asking me because we're supposed to ask you, but
I asked both
yeah,
of you,
I'll just answer first. As the first thing came in my mind was when it comes to art or music, it's more like a passion-driven job. You know, so you don't really chase after money, but you go for a passion first and you do what you want to do. So that's the beauty of, you know, having music as your career, because that's what you really want to do. You really want to make yourself out of all this. So that's when you create your own band, or you can go just by solo. And to sustain financially, it's not easy. It's the biggest challenge, I will say so, because we don't have any fixed income or regular income that we'll get monthly. So that's when we have to look for opportunities. We have to meet people out there, try to perform, and with the quality, of course, and to be able to deliver our messages via music. So that's another challenge. Yeah. But to come to your questions, it is not easy to sustain the band, or also to perform as a musician. Yeah,
So
it's really I love this thing because like musicians, us as a community, we always talk about passion, and. But the thing is, right? If you're doing it as a part-time thing, where you know, like you perform maybe, you know, once a month or 4 times a month, then it can be a passion thing. Like, you know, you get a gig and like, oh, I want to perform here. Oh, it doesn't pay so well. It's okay, you know. I have a job. You know, if they have a 9-to-5 job, then they take it for whatever pay or no pay. You know, that happens, and it's okay for them. But if you're doing music every day, then you have to kind of view it differently. It cannot just be purely based on this passion, and not where passion does not coincide with the remuneration. It has to be. Most of the time, it basically boils down to having like multiple streams of income. Like for instance, I teach 5 days a week. I have private students. I do clinics. I do workshops. Most recently, I played with the Malaysian Philharmonic Orchestra. So that's a session gig. I'm coming in as an extra musician with the orchestra, and I'm sight reading. I'm reading parts. You know, I'm playing stuff like Defying Gravity and you know, stuff, music from Wicked and music from different musicals. And that's a different skill set than, for instance, if I play solo. And that's a different skill set than if I'm teaching. But the reason it's possible for me to do a career in music is because I have that skill set. I could be playing with the orchestra one day. I could be coming in a recording studio and playing. A few months ago, I played on a track for a YouTube artist where it's a cover of all of me, the John Legend song. And so I'm coming in, I'm playing guitar for that track, and then I go out. And that's not what I don't play that song, but I could come in and do a session where someone wants an acoustic track, and then I could, you know, I've written column. I had an online column for The Star, and where I'm writing about music and how technology and music coincide and they work together. So these are different things. And I think the thing is that a lot of people tend to think, I'm going to be a rock star. So they're in a band, I'm going to be a rock star. And it's not that it's impossible. I'm just saying it's very difficult. If you just want to be in one band and want to make it big, you have to work really hard. It's possible, but it's harder. But most of the people I know who's been doing music for 5, 6, 7, 10 years and more, they do different things. You know?
That's how they are able to sustain their career in a way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you can't help to see some musicians, they don't come from a certain status or socio-economic background. How are they able to diversify their music business, and also when they don't have that connection or that particular music education and they are starting from zero?
Then you start building those connections. You know, I have a lot of students who their families are not doing music. They have no music background except for, like, you know, taking classes with me, for instance. And I tell them, you want to be a performer? Well, you have to perform. That means you go perform at an open mic. Then they say, oh, I'm scared to perform at open mic. Then you cannot be a performer. If you want to be a performer, you have to perform all the time. So initially, you know, you can't expect to do big shows immediately. You have to play a bunch of open mics. Even for, I'm working with one of my students right now. Her name's Kirsten Long, and she's a jazz pianist and a vocalist. And I'm doing a project with her where I'm playing guitar and she's singing. And how do we develop this project? Well, we play open mics. So we've played 2 open mics so far, and I told her, like, we need to play another 10, you know, like about 10 at least, until it becomes like slightly better. And you gain the experience. And it doesn't matter whether you know people or not. I would still give the same advice, you know. You want to be a better performing musician, you go perform gigs. You perform open mics. No one wants to give you a gig. You set up your own gig. You want to play bigger shows. No one wants to call you. You're probably not good enough yet.
During ASEAN will set up the gig for you.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much.
Should love that.
Yeah, so that was pretty much of insight of the music industry. Today is Malaysia Day.
Yeah.
So, Azamat, what does Malaysia Day mean to you?
Well, Malaysia Day, to me, it means more than what historically it means. You know, historically is how Malaysia came together as a country. But for myself, I think it's a celebration of kind of the diversity of the people, the cultures, the different backgrounds, you know, people from... It's a celebration of all the differences, the similarities, and no matter who you are, at the heart of it, there is kind of a connecting tissue that makes us Malaysians. Yeah, that to me is what Malaysia Day represents now.
Has your background, you know, your father is a very famous, in fact, he's a national poet. Has he somehow inspires you in any other way in terms of your music or the way you view life in general?
Absolutely. My dad inspires me in so many ways. And I think in terms of just from my music directly, watching him write, watching him as a writer, how he works, he always tells me that he's not not like a gifted writer. He's not like someone who can sit down, write something and it's perfect and beautiful. He takes a long time. He'll write something, edit it, revise it, look at it again. And, after, a few hours, a few days, a few months, a few years, then it comes together as a piece of work. And that's inspired my own work, because I feel that, I'm not... Sometimes when people watch me perform, they may think, oh, he's so gifted. And it's a frustrating thing to explain, because it's like, it's not natural. Playing guitar is really unnatural to me. It's a really difficult thing for me to do.
Hip-hop is more natural to you?
Yo.
Yo, okay.
No. I think anything there's very few things that I do that are kind of natural. It just took me a long time, and it means that, I wake up in the morning, I was like, okay, I need to be better at this, and I'll think of something and I'll practice. And it's just the discipline of doing it day in, day out that will kind of make it better. And I got that from my dad, watching him work at his craft.
So I can say that it comes with the consistency.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about consistency and doing it for a long time. If you keep doing something for a long time and you keep focusing on how do I refine this, there's very little chance that you're going to get worse unless you completely have no idea how to practice.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yes.
What do you see yourself in the future? Let's say in another 5 years, in terms of your career direction.
What I'm doing now is I've been very much kind of entranced with Malaysian music. Like I'm falling more and more in love with older Malaysian pop music. I've been
example, like
in
the 70s or 60s,
yeah, well,
or 80s,
all around it. 70s have been very surprising. 80s as well. I listen to stuff from Carefree. I listen to stuff from Ahmad Wanyit, who's this pianist, and from your Sudirman to your Sheila Majid to your P. Ramlee. And I've been learning more and more about this music, and I realized that Malaysian music pop music, I mean, has been very rich in influence.
And in fact, I still remember my mom and dad once shared with me in the 70s especially, and also in the 60s, the musician from Malaysia and Indonesia, they actually promote their music with each other. That's why they can have my parents can have a taste for Indonesian music as well, Indonesian artists in the 70s and also 60s.
Yeah, I think they're they were hits in both countries. You know, like you'll see, and also include Singapore as well. You know, there'll be Singaporean artists that are popular in Malaysia, or kind of viewed almost the same. You know, it's just it's all Nusantara. It's all within the region, and yeah. So, how does this relate to me in 5 years' time? I looked at all this music, and I'm being influenced and being inspired by it. So I kind of picture my music having more of these influences in my own music, and I'm already in a way doing what I want to do, which is I get to perform with the Malaysian Philharmonic Orchestra. I get to tour. I'm teaching, and I think in 5 years' time I would love to tour more and perform more regionally.
To twerk more.
Yeah. I would like to tour. No, not twerk more.
I want to tour more and
just perform in different countries. You know, I haven't performed in Korea, for instance. I would like to perform in Korea. I would like to tour, perform in Japan, and
what about in Southeast Asia? You know, when people talk about Southeast Asian music, it's quite diverse and
it's very diverse.
Very diverse. So how have you ever been to any music festival outside of Malaysia within Southeast Asia, or mingle with any of the artists in either in the Indochina area, or?
I played the Philippines International Jazz Festival, and that included artists from Philippines and US and different places, and that was interesting just to see Filipino jazz musicians. They're amazing.
Really?
They're amazing, and the most in-tune singers I've ever seen in my life were singing with their veteran singers were singing with the big band, and it sounded just absolutely stunning. That's one experience that was very eye-opening, just to see the diversity of the talent there. Also, I perform in Singapore fairly regularly, and I played for the Mosaic Music Festival, most recently for Pesta Raya with vocalist Cheryl Tan. And we did this thing called the Great Malay Songbook, which includes songs from Nusantara, and that was part of the impetus for me to discover more of this music.
Is it the annual thing or something? The Great Malaysia?
Pesta Raya.
The Pesta Raya. Sorry.
Pesta Raya is an annual festival, and but I was fortunate this year. They invited us to perform there, and it was great. 3 sets of music, and you get to watch the other people. I saw another band, a Singaporean band, play keroncong, live keroncong, and it's it's nice. It's just a lot of energy. Nothing beats listening to music live. And I think that's what performing musicians all the time, they try to explain to people, you have to watch this thing live, you have to watch this band live. There's a certain energy to it.
What is, you just mentioned the Cheryl Tan, and then I've watched your TED KL talk. What is this project that you guys been doing? Would you elaborate more on the project?
Yeah, we noticed that you sang a lot of really older Malay songs.
Yeah.
Are you trying to revive back the songs from that era?
Well, me and Cheryl, we started off this thing called the Malaysian Music Project, and it was partly because both of us, we both studied in the US, and when you travel away from your home country, you suddenly realize all the things that you love about your country a lot more. And so we did the project to discover more about Malaysian music and the history of Malaysian pop music and art music. And the extension of that was the performance at Pesta Raya, which is a wider range, not just Malaysian music. It was the Great Malay Songbook, which means songs from Indonesia, songs from Singapore, Malaysia, just like the whole Malay-speaking region. And that was even more eye-opening. Then I could see all the influences from different kinds of music. So that's and from that project, it's become kind of my own personal project now. Some of the songs like Tunggu Sekejap
I love
a
this
beautiful.
song. Yes.
It is such a complex ballad. My God, I was like so shocked at how it's kind of like
The
for Malay
structure.
music. Yeah, it's the equivalent of like Thelonious Monk's "Round Midnight" or something, or Chelsea Bridge by Ellington. It's such a grand jazz ballad, really. So I want to. That's one of the songs I want to arrange for solo guitar. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds amazing, huh?
Yeah.
If you have all the power in the world, like if you can change something about, if you can change something about our music industry today and the direction of the music that we have, the music genre or music that we have in general in Malaysia, what kind of future that you foresee it should be or it ought to be
In Malaysia, right?
in Malaysia?
I wouldn't change anything about the genre. I think we're having the most kind of a lot of diversity now. I mean, you have a band like Faz, and then you have like Reza Saleh, and you have like Temperamental, and you have Deja Voodoo Spells, and Love Me Butch, and Lap the Rat, and Seven Color T-Shirt, and Monologue, and Liana Fizi. I mean, these are very Impatient Sisters. Everyone sounds. They all have a different sound. So I would, and then on the side of that, then you have your, the bigger stars, your Ziavi, Yuna, and stuff. So there's a lot of good. I wouldn't change anything about the genre. I think one thing I would would love to see develop is having a touring circuit. That's what's missing in the scene, because unless you're a
In the
big
past, there's this rock the world. I still remember.
It's still
in
around.
It is still around.
Yeah, it's still around. Rock the World's still around. We are not lacking of festivals. We're lacking a tour circuit. So if you're a band and then you want to perform, sure, you can perform for like Urbanscapes and Rock the World once you've kind of made it, and then you get these gigs and you can perform for those events. But that's like all in Klang Valley, and like Malaysians are all around Malaysia and beyond, right? So it's harder for a band to just like, I'm gonna tour Malaysia, and then like, okay, where do I perform? Oh, I know someone in Penang, and I know someone in JB, I think.
So it's very centralized to
the
one
big
spot.
cities, the major cities,
The major
yeah.
cities.
And it's mostly KL, Penang, and JB in a
But
sense.
your dream is to have like every state, including Kelantan, Terengganu, Sabah,
It'd be
Sarawak.
nice if someone said, hey, I'm an an acoustic singer-songwriter. I want to tour Malaysia, and there is a connected scene where you could perform in KL at this venue, and then perform in Ipoh, and then drive up some more and perform here, and then perform in Penang, and then perform in Perlis, and so you can reach different audiences. This is what is available like in more developed scenes like in the US or Europe. You could engage a company, say, I'm this artist, this is my style, I have this many fans, I would like to tour, and then they work out a schedule for you to travel and perform. You may not make money from this, but you get to reach your audience. And right now, the thing is that if you have a band in KL, you end up playing in KL all the time. Every once in a while, you go to Penang. And then every once in a while, maybe if you're lucky, you go to Singapore or something.
And it's always the same crowd. You're not reaching out to the new
yeah,
crowd.
and I think every time I've been successful in getting a new crowd, a new audience, it's been at like TEDx, and then that's what you saw me. If not, you wouldn't have seen me, or like people see me with the orchestra. With
I wouldn't
NPO.
have no moonshine without Grace, for example.
So you have to be connected. Right now, how do people find out about the music scene? You have to know one musician. Once you know one musician, they tell you, and then suddenly your Facebook feed's like all these invites. You see this. But, what about the people who do not have musician friends, How do you find out about this? I think that's what would be great if that developed,
That's when you step forward and you reach your own audience.
Yeah, where your audience... I'm interested in getting people who don't play music to listen to my music. Just like
me.
Yeah. That's it's great. So you've heard my music now, and I think that's what happens with musicians. We tend to tell people about music, and then our friends are all musicians. So it's like, of course they know you because they're musicians as well. But I picture a scene where you can reach out to a bigger audience, even for indie musicians, not just.
Before we end the show, we are in conjunction with Malaysia Day, which is today. We would like to know what is your ideal Malaysia, And what kind of message you want to send to our fellow Malaysians?
And also in addition to that, because he's got a beautiful tunes, so he can, just share about one of his tunes that related to Malaysia Day. Yes.
Yeah. What's my vision of Malaysia? I envision a Malaysia where where we embrace our culture, meaning that if you happen to be of Malay descent, you embrace your Malay, your Malay food and the Malay language and all these things, but you're not being restricted by your identity, your racial makeup. So you think yourself as Malaysian. I imagine a Malaysia where everyone's just like, we're all Malaysians, but hey, I have this heritage of Malay food and Malay language and Malay pantun, and if you're from Chinese descent, then you have all your great Chinese food and all this amazing language and literature and Mandarin, and you embrace it, but you're not restricted by that. Where the diversity is celebrated more and more, and where you're not restricted by it. I think a lot of arguments is when people think it's the same thing like with musicians, like, I'm a musician. Well, you should be a kind of a cool person to be with first. It doesn't matter whether you play music or you're in a startup or you're a businessman. If you're a nice person, you're a nice person. And that's what really matters. I imagine a place where people are nice.
So if I were to ask you to choose one song from your tunes, what would you recommend or what would you play for on Malaysia Day?
On Malaysia Day?
Yeah.
I thought long and hard about this. I was thinking like, Malaysia Day, what's my song? It's the song I wrote in Tapa Perak. It's called Tapa Perak. You should go there. It's a very small town. You should go.
All right.
And it's a song I wrote called Senja Mula Menangis. What happened was I was performing with my dad. We had an event, and there was some downtime before the event. So we had an event before that, and then we were just in this rest house. It's a very small rest house in a very small hill. I think it's the only rest house there, unless things have changed since. And I wrote it when... translated, Senja Mula Menangis means twilight begins to cry. And it was just, I saw the sunset, like just about the sunset about to happen, and it was just really, really beautiful. And so this song to me, when I think about that, what are the odds of me writing a song in Tapa Perak? I never thought that that's something I would, it's not on my checklist. I will write a song in Tapa Perak. I will write a song here. Because the memory of that reminds me that Malaysia can inspire you everywhere, and usually at the most unsuspecting places. It could be like in a small road somewhere in brickfields where you see like, oh my God, the vegetarian food here is awesome. Or like, you're like in Cheras somewhere and you're at like some pasar malam, and it's like you see everyone's like so happy. Malaysians like to be at pasar malam.
Yeah,
you don't buy anything. You just like, oh my God, it's so awesome.
Let's go to the pasar malam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of being Malaysian is that we thrive in being in this kind of environments where it's always food.
Yeah, for me, what makes me happy is burger ramly at night.
I think of that all the time.
Especially late at night, it's like, I'm so hungry. I don't want to eat like heavy
and you
food.
crave for ramly burger.
Yeah, you don't want heavy food, right?
Yeah.
So you have your burger ramly special, which is not heavy, right? And I love how it's geographically convenient. You just need to find a 7-Eleven. There's bound to be a ramly burger right in front of it.
There's a ramly burger nearby here, actually.
Yeah, so that's something I think since I was a kid. I think just looking at Malaysia Day, reflecting on all these things. And another thing I think is Malaysians in general are just more proud to be Malaysian now. I think in the past people, just clothes in general, for instance, when I was growing up, people all want to wear like Benetton, and people want to wear Giordano, or like want to wear Guess. Guess was a big thing at one point. 94, 95, 96, everyone wanted to wear Guess. That was the thing. But now I see, I wear Pestle and Mortar and clothing, Malaysian homegrown brand. My bag is... Yeah, my bag is Green Room 136. Represent Green Room 136. And I think Malaysians now, especially urban Malaysians in general, are more proud of the brands that we make. I think we finally realized, and as a community, as a country, we are more proud of what we produce. And so I feel very blessed to be at this period in Malaysia. No matter what problems we have, I think Malaysians are more proud to be Malaysians now.
So with that,
yeah, we'll end this session.
Thank you very much.
It was really a pleasure and great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.